If you are tuning in right now, I know exactly who you are and honestly exactly what you're doing.
Yep.
You're a planner. You have this massive career-defining professional exam looming on the horizon, and you're probably feeling the pressure of just a mountain of reading material. So welcome to your dedicated study session. Today's deep dive is custom built entirely for you.
It really is. Because, exam prep can feel incredibly overwhelming, especially when you're dealing with ethical guidelines and professional standards. It can get dry.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Which is why our mission today is incredibly straightforward. We are taking your source material, specifically those excerpts from the Ontario Planning Journal, and we're going to break down every single detail, every section, every scenario.
Right. And what we want to do today is move past just, memorizing the rules. We're going to explore the underlying logic because understanding why these ethical guidelines exist within the OPI, Professional Code of Practice, that's the actual key to passing this exam.
Yeah, exactly. By the time we're done here, you're going to understand this material inside and out, and you won't even need to crack open that original document again.
Grasping those foundational principles means you won't just pass your test, you'll actually navigate your entire career with a clear framework for making really tough calls.
Okay, so let's jump right into the material. We are looking at a feature in the Ontario Planning Journal called Dear Dilemma. It's put together by the Professional Practice and Development Committee.
And it's a great resource because instead of just listing dry rules, this column takes the code of practice and the standards of practice and applies them to true-to-life scenarios.
Real quandaries that planners face in the wild.
Exactly.
So the first letter we have is from a municipal planner who signs off as community-minded. Now, this person entered the profession for all the right reasons, a keen interest in community building, protecting the environment, supporting sensible planning decisions.
The good stuff.
Right. And outside of their day job, they volunteer and support a number of local organizations.
Which I should point out is incredibly common. Planners are naturally community-oriented people. The dilemma usually arises when those two worlds collide.
And collide they do in this letter. So one of the organizations this planner volunteers with wants to improve a lakeside park by constructing this combination gazebo and bandshell.
That's nice.
It does. And the local municipal council supports the general concept. But the organization's dream structure exceeds the maximum height allowed by the local zoning bylaw.
Oh, there it is.
Yep. To get this built, it requires a minor variance, which, just as a quick refresher for the sake of the scenario, is basically a formal permission to bend the local zoning rules just a bit to accommodate a unique situation.
And the trap for our planner here is their specific role within the municipality. Part of their day-to-day work is to provide recommendations to the Committee of Adjustment.
Right, the local body that actually reviews and grants those permissions on minor variance application.
Exactly.
So the project is getting controversial in the community, and the planner admits they're feeling subtle and sometimes direct pressure from the association they volunteer with to support the height variance.
They go caught in the middle.
Completely caught between professional duties and community passions. So looking at this strictly from an exam perspective, what is the core principle at stake here?
We need to look at the standard of independent professional judgment. The Code of Practice is exceptionally clear on this concept. A professional planner cannot be an advocate for any position other than their own balanced, fair, professional opinion.
It has to be objective.
Utterly objective. That opinion has to be the result of a proper, rigorous evaluation process. It absolutely cannot be swayed by who is asking, even if the person asking is a friend from your weekend volunteer group.
There are three specific principles from the code cited in the committee's response that you definitely need to memorize for the exam. First, the text states, a planner shall not perform work if there is an actual, apparent, or foreseeable conflict of interest.
Apparent is a big word there.
Yeah. Second, planners must zealously guard against conflict of interest or its appearance. And third, planners must disclose unavoidable conflicts or deny favorable treatment to special interest groups, whether private or public.
I want to highlight that phrase, zealously guard. That's the anchor there. It suggests a proactive approach. You don't just wait for a conflict to manifest and then deal with it. You actively build walls to prevent even the appearance of one.
Because public perception is everything.
Right. The public needs to know that the planning process is objective. If they see a municipal planner recommending a variance for a group they belong to, the objectivity of the entire department is compromised in the eyes of the public.
That does bring up a potential defense, though. I mean, a planner might argue that they have a right to freedom of association on their own time. Being involved with a well-established community organization with good credentials, that shouldn't be a punishable offense.
And the committee's response addresses that directly. The idea that a planner should remain free of associations and activities that may compromise integrity,
Yeah.
it doesn't mean you can never volunteer. We all have outside interests.
Right.
The issue isn't the association itself, it's recognizing when that association breaches your professional integrity.
So the resolution for community-minded isn't necessarily to just quit the volunteer group, it's to manage the professional boundary. And the committee actually provides a two-tiered piece of advice for this specific scenario.
Let's hear it.
The gold standard option is to step aside entirely. If this planner works in a larger office, they should officially declare the potential conflict of interest and have another planner provide the professional opinion to the committee of adjustment. You just remove yourself from the equation entirely.
But the reality of municipal planning in Ontario is that many planners work in very small offices.
Sometimes you're the only one.
Exactly. You're the only planner on staff. You can't just hand a file to the person at the next desk.
So in that situation, where they absolutely must provide the planning advice, the committee says the standard becomes even more stringent. The advice must be completely independent of any influence. The opinion has to be the end product of an evaluation process conducted openly and freely entered into with the strict application of research techniques.
You rely purely on the data, the local bylaws, the objective facts of the site. You document your process meticulously so that anyone reviewing your recommendation can see exactly how you arrived at it.
Completely divorced from any pressure from the community group.
Right. And the committee wraps up that letter by stating that conducting yourself in this manner is critical to the profession. In fact, it should be recognized by the employer and the community organization as commendable. By drawing that hard line, the planner is proving their professional worth.
So giving in to that pressure might make your weekend volunteer meetings easier, but it risks the entire public trust in the municipal planning process.
Which is the core takeaway for your exam regarding conflicts of interest. The boundaries protect the profession.
Okay, moving on to the second major section of your study materials. We encounter a topic that often causes a lot of anxiety for planners moving into the private sector, and that is supplanting.
Oh, yes. The supplanting rule.
We have a letter from a planner who signs off as confused. They are a newly registered RPP, a registered professional planner who recently set up their own firm in Ontario. Because they're new, every single client they get is, by definition, a new client.
Makes sense.
But they're running into a serious issue. In several different situations, other local planners have accused them of breaching the professional code of practice by supplanting them.
Section 3.1 of the Code specifically addresses this. It states that a member shall not attempt to supplant another member once the planner has knowledge that definite steps have been taken toward the other's employment.
Definite steps. That's the phrase to remember. The committee actually provides a dictionary definition in their response, usurping the place of, especially through intrigue or underhanded tactics. Yeah, while the word intrigue might sound a bit dramatic for a zoning application, the practical reality is really about the ethics of how you acquire your clients. It's the difference between open market competition and poaching a file that is already spoken for.
Before analyzing the 4 specific scenarios Confused provided, we really need to highlight a massive caveat for the exam. The column makes it explicitly clear that only the OPPI Discipline Committee can actually make a finding as to whether the code has been breached in any particular case.
So even though other planners are accusing Confused of a code breach, those planners don't actually have the authority to make that ruling.
Exactly. Only the Discipline Committee does. We are just discussing whether these scenarios appear to be a breach based on the committee's guidance, not issuing legal verdicts.
Keeping that in mind, let's look at the nuances of these 4 situations. The golden rule of taking on new clients isn't just about whether the ink is dry on a contract. It's about the presence of those definite steps and maintaining professional courtesy over aggressive poaching.
Let's test that against Situation A.
Situation A is the recurring client. So an individual hires our new planner, Planner Z. Sometime later, Planner Z gets a call from the client's former planner. This former planner is really upset and says, I had always done that individual's planning work, and I expected to be assigned to this project as well.
According to the committee, it is highly unlikely that Planner Z supplanted the former planner here. The foundational concept is that clients are free to choose their representation.
Right.
A client might use a planner for 10 consecutive files and then decide to try someone new for the 11th. A planner's expectation or hope of receiving future work based on past history is just not relevant to the code.
However, the committee does offer some vital best practice advice to avoid these tense phone calls. When approached by a potential new client, it should be your protocol to ask questions about their history.
Always ask.
Find out what planners the client has used in the past. Ask them directly if they have informed that past planner that they are seeking someone else for this new assignment.
Taking the initiative to preemptively contact the previous professional colleague is also highly recommended. A simple phone call to say, hey, I've been approached by one of your past clients for a new assignment. It diffuses the tension before rumors start swirling.
It establishes a baseline of professional courtesy.
Exactly.
But that concept of courtesy is tested even further in situation B, which is the unpaid colleague. An individual approaches Planner Z. Another planner, Planner Y, had already done some work on this specific file, but the client's firm was dissatisfied with Planner Y's work.
Okay.
So Planner Z takes the job. Later, Planner Y contacts Planner Z and advises that they have not been paid for the work they previously did on that exact file.
This is a scenario where the OKPI code differs from some other professions. In certain fields, there are strict rules prohibiting a professional from taking on a file when a colleague has an outstanding invoice on that matter.
But the OPTI code does not contain such language, right?
Sure. Technically, you are not prohibited from taking the job just because the previous planner hasn't been paid.
The committee's advice here is fascinating because they separate the strict letter of the code from the reality of daily practice. While taking the file isn't a strict code violation, it's a magnet for ethics complaints and professional drama.
Oh, massive drama.
The committee points out that as a matter of professional courtesy, many planners simply avoid taking on these files altogether.
If you are going to proceed with a client in that situation, the suggested best practice is to ask the potential new client directly. Has the previous planner been paid in full? You should also ask if all reasonable steps have been taken to formally terminate that past relationship.
You want a clean, documented break before you attach your firm's name to a messy file.
Exactly. Keep your firm out of the mess.
All right, let's compare the last two scenarios because this is where the exam will likely test your ability to distinguish the gray areas. Situation C is the general search. Planner Z hears that an individual needs a planner. This individual is actively considering some well-known local names, like Planner X. Planner Z takes the initiative, contacts the individual, points out their own unique qualifications, and is hired.
The verdict here is that this is unlikely to be supplanting. The individual was in the active search phase. They hadn't made a decision or taken definite steps toward employment with anyone.
It's totally normal for clients to meet with multiple planners to assess qualifications and fit.
Right. Throwing your hat into the ring during a general search is just healthy market competition. The committee's response to this is a straightforward, you were hired, congratulations.
Okay, now let's look at situation D, which is the active negotiation. It sounds almost identical at first. Planner Z hears an individual is talking with Planner W about a particular project. Planner Z contacts the individual, points out their unique qualifications, and gets hired instead of Planner W. What is the dividing line that makes situation D potentially a code breach when situation C was totally fine?
The dividing line rests on two crucial nuances. First, we have to look closely at the phrase particular project combined with the status of the client's conversations. In situation C, it was a general search. In situation D, if the client was actively negotiating a contract or reviewing a detailed proposal with Planner W for that specific project.
That constitutes definite steps toward employment.
Exactly.
So the timeline matters immensely. Intervening after definite steps have been taken crosses the line from marketing into supplanting.
And the second nuance is the method of intervention. The committee warns that we must consider how forceful Planner Z was in trying to convince the client. If Planner Z used aggressive tactics, they might have breached entirely different sections of the code, specifically sections 3.9 and 3.0.
Let's detail those sections so you have them for your notes. Section 3.9 involves falsely or maliciously injuring the professional reputation, prospects, or practice of another member. Section 3.1z deals with offering ill-considered or uninformed criticism of the competence, conduct, or advice of another member.
This means if Planner Z pitched themselves by saying, Planner W doesn't have the expertise for this kind of variance, my firm is much better equipped. They aren't just aggressively marketing. They are actively disparaging a colleague to usurp a file.
That transforms the situation from a questionable marketing tactic into a clear ethical violation involving multiple sections of the code.
To summarize that for your exam, the line between a healthy competition and an ethics violation depends entirely on whether definite steps toward employment had already occurred with another planner and whether your method of acquiring the client involved disparaging a colleague.
The ethical pressures we just discussed, navigating community conflicts of interest and fiercely competing for clients without supplanting, they don't exist in a vacuum. They're magnified by the physical and logistical pressures of modern planning, which provides a perfect thematic bridge to the final piece of your source material.
It really does.
We want to ensure you have complete coverage of your study guide, so we're going to dive into the excerpt from an article titled A Consultant's Perspective by Christian Huggett, which focuses on urban design.
Huggett is sharing observations drawn from 10 years of experience as a consultant working in planning, urban design, and architecture in Toronto and the surrounding municipalities.
And the specific focus of this excerpt is under the heading Challenging Urban Sites. Huggett notes that while his observations are primarily relevant to urban design practice in urban areas, they carry weight for the practice of urban design in general.
The central thesis you need to extract for your exam is his assertion that many larger Canadian cities are reaching maturity due to a convergence of issues.
The text notes that this convergence of issues represents a strong Canadian context for urban design. To really understand what Huggett means by cities reaching maturity, we have to look at the context of places like Toronto and its surrounding municipalities.
When a city reaches maturity, the era of easy, sprawling greenfield development is largely over. The convergence of issues refers to the complex reality of managing growth within fixed boundaries.
You're dealing with aging infrastructure that needs to support higher densities.
Right. You have the integration of massive new transit projects into existing historic neighborhoods. You have the friction between preserving community character and the desperate need for varied housing supply.
Every square foot of land becomes highly contested. A maturing city means planners are constantly working on infill projects, brownfield redevelopments, and mixed-use spaces where residential, commercial, and industrial needs all smash into each other.
This is exactly what creates the challenging urban sites the article mentions. The easy sites were built on decades ago. What is left are the oddly shaved parcels, the sites with complex environmental remediations, or the air rights above active transit lines.
Urban design in a mature Canadian city is no longer just about making things look nice. It's about solving a three-dimensional puzzle with intense public scrutiny.
And this ties directly back to why the OPPI Code of Practice is tested so rigorously. The pressure cooker of these mature, complex cities makes ethical breaches more tempting and more consequential.
When millions of dollars in critical community infrastructure are riding on a single challenging site, the pressure on the municipal planner to grant a variance, or the pressure on the private consultant to poach a lucrative file, it skyrockets.
The convergence of physical and logistical issues in our cities demands an equally robust ethical foundation from the professionals managing that growth.
Okay, let's do a final review to really lock this in for your exam prep. What are the core values you need to walk away with today? First, regarding community conduct, memorize the definition of a conflict of interest. You must zealously guard against it.
Your independent professional judgment cannot be compromised. And if you are in a small office where you cannot step aside, your advice must be strictly rooted in objective research techniques.
Second, understand the mechanics of Section 3.11 regarding supplanting. The entire rule hinges on whether definite steps toward employment have already been taken.
Know the difference between a general search, where competition is healthy, and an active negotiation, where intervening could lead to breaches of Sections 3.9 and 3.9 if you disparage a colleague.
And finally, contextualize all of this within the reality of Christian Huggett's observations on urban design. You are operating in maturing Canadian cities dealing with complex, converging challenges on difficult sites, which makes your adherence to the professional code more important than ever.
Beyond just passing this exam, these guidelines matter because they are the shield that protects your professional reputation. More importantly, they protect the public trust in the planning profession as a whole.
Because if the public believes that planners are easily swayed by special interests, or that consultants rely on underhanded tactics to secure contracts,
The authority of the entire profession crumbles.
it does. And that brings up a really provocative final thought for you to mull over while you review your notes. We talked extensively about Section 3.11 and how it relies on the phrase definite steps. But think about how fluid professional communication is today.
Oh, absolutely.
In our hyper-connected digital world, where does a casual inquiry end and a definite step begin?
It's a great question. If a client sends a direct message to a planner on a professional networking site asking for a rough fee estimate, is that a definite step? If another planner sees a public post about a project and slides in with a better offer 5 minutes later, is that supplanting?
The code gives us the foundational principles, but the specific application is constantly evolving. It's going to be up to the next generation of planners like you to navigate those digital gray areas with the same integrity expected in a formal boardroom.
The technology and the cities will continue to mature, but the ethics remain the foundation of the job.
To the planner listening to this right now, you have got this. You understand the rules, you understand the reasons behind the rules, and you are prepared for the complexities of the practice. Thank you for letting us be your study buddies today. Good luck on the exam, and we will catch you on the next deep dive.